Hello and welcome to the ongoing town meeting television election coverage on Town Meeting TV. My name is Ali Jang, and this program is one of the series of forum that we host in advance of Town Meeting Day, Tuesday, March 5th, 2024. Today we have distinguished guests from Winooski, and I will allow them to maybe introduce themselves. And let's start with Christine and go that side.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Christine Lott. I am the mayor of Winooski.
Thank you.
Yeah, again, thank you for hosting us. And I'm Thomas Runner, Deputy Mayor of Winooski.
Okay.
Hi. Elaine Wong, the city manager for Winooski.
Okay. Thank you all for being here today. On tonight's program, we are diving into the proposed budget and ballot questions that the City of Winooski resident will be seeing on the ballot on Town Meeting Day. So before we get started, just a reminder that if you are tuning in, you can please call us right here and ask to our guests some questions. And the number to call is 802-862-3966. 802-862-3966. So let's now get started with a very simple question. How many people live in Winooski, and what is the demographic composition of that great city?
So we have 8,000 residents as of the 2020 census. Mm-hmm. And Elaine, you just said it.
22% non-white and 19% born outside of the U.S.
Okay, 19% foreign born and 20% white.
22% not white.
22 non-white. Yeah. Perfect. All right, so now let's hand the presentation. Let's get started. And Christine, let's hand it to you to pull up your slides and let us know what will people see on the ballot this year.
Excellent. Yeah. So let me run through the FY25 budget and ballot items. As a reminder, in Winooski, all legal residents can vote on Town Meeting Day on these local items. Okay. So in this presentation, we have just a review of our strategic vision. We'll walk through the budget and the proposed changes, talk about what else is on the ballot for Town Meeting Day. And then I have some items forward-looking about emerging issues and some future needs that folks should have in mind. To not keep anyone in suspense, you can see here, though, in bold, this budget requires an 8.07% tax rate increase. So we like to ground everything we do in the community set strategic vision. This was developed through a community process in 2015. Following that, we spent several years doing a lot of in-depth planning, creating a master plan, a transportation plan, parks plan, et cetera. And for the last several years, we've been focused on implementing that with affordability and equity in mind.
So equity is something that's extremely important to the city. As you can imagine, like our city manager said, we're an extremely diverse city. So it's really something that's important to us. And last year, we developed a tool to help us guide our policy decisions with an equity lens. We always enacted a plan to increase community listening and engagement to inform these decisions. So we do different engagement efforts to make sure that everyone's being heard. So we visit with student groups at Winooski School District. We have visited with other types of groups like senior groups. We have a senior center in Winooski, so we all make sure that we go there. There's senior housing as well, so we make sure to stop by those places. And we also try to do informal gatherings, so we'll meet people at cocktail venues in Winooski, which there are a few, or we'll go to coffee shops so that we can get people in the morning before they head out to work. And then we also had an equity audit, and we received recommendations from that audit, which are really important for us to make sure that we keep those focused. So developing affordable housing. We hear about affordable housing all across the state, but especially in Winooski, where we're a small city. We want to educate and train landlords to make sure that they know how to treat our residents and make sure that the renters are also trained so that they know that what their rights are. And we develop strategies to increase civic participation among our BIPOC residents. So we have a big BIPOC population. It's really important that they're engaged in participating in democracy as well.
And it seems that you are one of the first municipalities to allow non-residents to vote.
Yes,
right.
That is correct.
And also, you also have, let's say, Director of Racial Equity Inclusion belonging in the past?
We did have one in the past funded through a grant. When the grant ended, we weren't able to retain that in the budget last year.
Wonderful. Thank you for all you do about equity. Keep going. Yeah.
Sure, and sharing that because this we use that tool and that lens in the decision on what to include in this budget that you'll see. Just a couple of highlights on recent achievements towards the vision. You know, we've advanced a number of capital plans. We have Main Street revitalization coming up. We're working on a hotel parking garage and workforce housing downtown. We've got that bridge project coming up. We've expanded community services offerings, particularly supporting youth. And we've progressed on housing priorities, trying to update zoning to support priority housing. We are working on short-term rental regulations right now. We have just hired a new police chief and have had our most successful year in removing guns and drugs from the street.
Yeah.
And a lot more. So I got off track, sorry.
Yep.
This is the outline of what is proposed in this budget. So the average home in Winooski right now is assessed at $225,000. With this budget, they would be paying $3,042.85 for the municipal side of the bill. This is not the education side of the
No
tax
school,
bill.
but just
the
the
city
municipal.
side.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the impact of that is about, it's 301 total per household, because I also have here, we're proposing 5% increases to the water and wastewater rates as well. The cost of water from Champlain Water District increased. And we're also trying to increase our capital funding to maintain our water lines.
That's great.
So the mayor mentioned what that will look like for your individual bills. So if your house is $225,000, what you're going to be looking at for your taxes in 2025 is $3,042.90. And this includes a lot of stuff, right? So our police and dispatch support, so they keep our community safe. It's the highest share of our general fund, and that's because we staff the police department 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So there's always somebody there if somebody were to need the police force. General administration, that makes all of the other functions more effective in our city. Public works, that manages our streets, our sidewalks, our water, all of that type of infrastructure that you see and you also do not see. We have capital expenses, so that's our debt service on our Main Street revitalization project, which is a big project that we're doing in Winooski. City vehicle replacement, so a police vehicle, there's a small tractor that's included in that. And community services, which support the vitality of our community. We're providing green spaces, safe spaces, learning spaces and programs. These include the library, the senior center, parks, the pool, and affordable childcare. There's fire and code enforcement. And again, that protects our safety, protects our buildings, extraordinarily important. And then there are regional programs as well that we pay for, well, the taxes pay for. Some of those are listed here, so Green Mountain Transit, Town Meeting TV, Winooski Parks and Valley District, all of those things have a price that's associated with them. And then finally, the O'Brien Community Center as well, which houses community services that are operated by the city. So your taxes pay for a lot of things that you see every day and that you also don't see every day.
I love this slide that you just shared. It's so beautiful. And looking at it, what are the initiatives around combating climate change? Right.
That's a great question because you don't see it directly. However, our whole development strategy is to be dense, be multimodal, and reduce people's reliance on vehicle transit. I think that's the biggest thing that we can do to address climate issues.
Good. It's embedded basically
Yeah.
in there. And I heard some fleas that may be changing also, maybe opportunities to make them electric instead of
That's right.
gas.
Yeah. We have some electric vehicles. We're looking at expanding that as
Excellent.
it becomes possible.
Excellent. Wonderful.
I have a point if you want. So there's the two big sectors in Vermont for greenhouse gas emissions are transportation, as you know, and the mayor was talking about that, as well as buildings, heating and cooling buildings, especially heating. So we have looked at Efficiency Vermont to see whether we could supplement their programs. And actually, we've finally concluded that it is not that productive for us to supplement their program. So it's really through the statewide utility for energy efficiency that Winooski's buildings are being addressed in terms of that source of greenhouse gas emissions.
Wonderful. Thank you. Yep.
Quickly wanted to show this organizational chart. as context for the budget, the majority of our costs are staff because it takes a lot of staff to deliver all of those services. So we have this listed here, all the departments, all the folks that sit under there. And the other key thing about this chart is that residents and voters are at the top. You know, they vote on us based on whether or not we serve them.
Yep.
We listen to them to get direction for the decisions we make. City Council, with the help of some volunteer commissions who provide us advice. We are then setting policy and directing the manager, who then directs staff to execute on all of those operations. So this is a breakdown of what has changed in this budget. 8.07% increase. 5.44% of that is actually just existing services, so increasing costs for salaries, healthcare, inflation. New items, a full-time fire captain position for evening coverage. Most of our department is like per diem, on-call, part-time, and we're finding it harder and harder to rely on that for emergency response and to recruit for those positions. We're also increasing the pay from 13 to 15 for those per diem, part-time folks. We are adding a second part-time circulation assistant to the library to ensure there's enough staffing to keep those hours. We had a 9% increase in our Green Mountain Transit assessment, so this maintains bus service. We are increasing our payments to Town Meeting TV and Winooski Valley Parks District. We are investing in a brine making operation for Public Works to reduce our use of road salt. That one actually will save us money at some point.
Good.
And then there are increases to the capital budget. So that's our regular like paving, sidewalks, planned replacements of existing equipment, but we've increased it a little bit. We'll get into more detail on that. And I wanted to note, you see at the top, this is a $200,000 increase. It was 330 and then offset with some savings and new revenue that staff worked hard to find as we were concerned about the overall tax impact.
And another thing to know, earlier you asked what we're doing about climate change. You wouldn't think it, but the snow and ice brine making equipment, by changing from salt to brine, it will actually reduce in less salt washing into the river and washing into the lake, which is, you know, those types of products washing into those bodies of water creates really bad algae blooms and all of that. So we're making steps with little things that we do within the budget to really help with climate change.
That's great.
Resilience, yeah.
Climate resilience.
So here's a little more detail on the brine system, and Thomas was just sharing some of the benefits.
Yeah, so
Speaking of.
So we're investing in this brine system. And the cost we'll see savings from that in 5 years. So although there is an upfront cost, because of the new way that we're going to be controlling ice on our roads, we're going to be saving money in the long run. I actually said most of all of this stuff already, but that was another good addition, is that although Winooski residents are going to see a pretty hefty cost at the beginning, we're really going to be saving money.
So getting more into the capital plan, we have a 5-year street paving plan that I like to show every year because folks really care about this. And so what you'll see here is what's targeted for fiscal year 25 in this budget is at the top of North Street, those streets up there. But also over here on the right side, you'll see this note with bond vote. We also want to do some paving in this area that was included in a prior budget, but the team discovered that the curbing was so bad that they couldn't actually do the paving and sidewalks without replacing it. And that's significantly more money than just paving. So this is why there's a bond vote involved. Similarly, we have a sidewalk plan as well. And so this is showing you that we also want to repair those sidewalks if the bond vote is approved. And then we're planning to install, there's a section on West Canal that's missing right now, which is a problem.
And what are you hearing from the residents so far? Are they concerned that the taxes?
This is actually the number one thing we've heard, like across demographics, even in the city, is street and sidewalk safety, the condition of sidewalks and streets, accessibility issues. And so that's why we had, as a council, directed that we wanted to see an increase in capital funding in this budget.
Very good.
It's interesting to hear obviously our community cares a lot about equity. You heard the mayor and deputy mayor both speak to that. And you think about how do municipalities promote equity? There's a lot of different ways, and there's a lot of work to do. But sidewalks is actually a very cross-cutting issue across a number of different user groups.
Very good.
So getting into that bond vote details, we had a bond vote in 2019 to redo Hickok Street in Winooski, and that project came in well under budget. So over $500,000 of unused proceeds have been sitting gaining interest. However, we are not allowed to actually make money off of bond money. So we're now going to get penalized for that. So we need to spend this money. The only thing we can spend it on is street projects authorized by voters. So we're asking voters to approve reallocating this money so we can do that work on the east side of town to the curbs, the sidewalks, and the paving.
So basically, Article 6 is not to allow residents, to ask residents to give you the power to borrow more money?
Not more money.
Yes, but to
existing money.
use the
Yes.
existing money. This is amazing.
Exactly.
This is great. This is great.
Thank you for making sure that point was clear, because otherwise it might look a little scary.
Yes.
But it's just strategic.
Okay.
And then we have another bond vote, Article 7. I'm sure you've driven across the Winooski Bridge.
Yep.
Winooski Burlington Bridge.
The Winooski Burlington
It's not just
Bridge. A lot of folks have, and it needs to be repaired. And it's going to be extraordinarily expensive for it to be repaired. Luckily, the state was able to get a grant from the federal government to cover about 90% of those project costs. However, like I said, it still is incredibly expensive. So Burlington and Winooski will each be paying a portion of that. So Winooski is going to have to come up with about $4.6 million to pay for our portion of this bridge, the Burlington-Winooski Bridge. So it's a 50-50 split, but we will be putting that to a bond to the voters. It's, like I said, it's a very expensive project. Without these federal funds, it probably wouldn't be moving forward at this moment in time.
Okay.
So if folks do want to be able to use that federal money for the bridge to be reconstructed, we would need that bond vote to be passed.
Yeah. So as also a resident of Burlington, I utilize Winooski, that bridge, so a lot of time. What is the plan in making it a little bit of a multi-modal use instead of only car, and also to respond to climate change?
Yeah, so the bridge is, in the plan that we're currently looking at, the bridge is going to be widened a little bit. And there will be lanes that are specific for bikes and for pedestrians to use on either side. They're still going through design, so we're not 100% sure what that's entirely going to look like. But it's a huge factor of what the team that is designing and working on the bridge, they heard from residents of both cities that's really important to them, so they did allot those two spaces for it.
Okay.
Right, and there is analysis that's still in process right now, but the latest that I heard is that they looked at the level of service and based on current use at a peak hour in the summer, which means like that's the, I guess, you might say worst case scenario, but it's really the best case scenario where there's a lot of bicycle traffic. The new, or the design for the update can accommodate 3 times that amount. So it's not just what it can comfortably accommodate what it's doing now, but that much more. So that's a way that we're addressing that concern.
This is good. I know we don't have a lot of time, but also for those who are viewing this, you still can call with questions at 802-862-3966. 862-3966. Please go ahead.
So what you'll see on the screen in just a moment is what will be on the ballot. Everything that we've discussed today, the city and the school budgets. The mayor is up for election this year for a 3-year term. 2 council seats are also up for election with 2-year terms. The school board seats, there's one that is for a 2-year term, one for a 3-year term. There's also a Champlain Water District Commissioner with a 3-year term, and then our 2 bond votes. And as a reminder, the mayor already mentioned this, but it's really important to us. All residents of Winooski can vote, and you can register at the polls when you show up if you are not registered already. So we hope to see you on March 5th.
Wonderful. And now, do we know if these seats are contested or all of them not contested?
There are 3 candidates for the 2 council seats. The other seats are currently not contested.
Okay, including the mayor.
Including the mayor, yes.
So we'll see the same mayor.
Well, you never
That
know.
seems likely.
There's always write-ins, you never know.
Excellent.
So that is, the town meeting ballot portion. But I do want to share, this is an opportunity to share emerging issues and be a little more forward-looking. 8.07% tax rate increase is high. We haven't done a rate that high in quite a while. Inflation is a big part of that, but also we've been working to catch up on unfunded needs in staff, in capital. So that is something that we need to keep in mind. We also want folks to know that we are currently working with Champlain Housing Trust to transfer ownership of the O'Brien Community Center. They're better positioned to operate that facility in line with its current mission. So all existing tenants would be retained. There would be an expansion. We're talking about expanding our library space, the community health centers of Burlington space, retaining the community access, and they might even find other tenants that serve community needs. We will have a public session at the community center once we get further in the process. We mentioned Main Street revitalization. We are reconstructing the entirety of Main Street from above the Rotary Bridge all the way to the Colchester Town line, narrowing the streets to make them safer, improving all crosswalks, widening sidewalks, adding a bike lane, trees. It's pretty big. It'll be kind of like our downtown revitalization at a slightly smaller scale. Should begin in April. We'll have a public meeting in March. We, as mentioned earlier, continue to struggle with recruitment of emergency staff. So that is something that is in our mind about potential upcoming needs. Voters supported regional dispatch a couple years ago. I think Burlington also was a part of that. The path forward on that is unclear, but we continue to budget for that so that we're positioned to either join when it's ready or address those problems on our own side. And then I have to mention the impact of our citywide reappraisal and education funding changes. So at the beginning of this process, because of the updated student weighting in the education funding, we anticipated Winooski School District finally receiving appropriate resources for the population we serve. And that this would probably mean they wouldn't need to raise taxes on the school side of the bill. But as we've seen in the news, education spending is just going up this year. So we really don't know what that's going to look like. And it's also unclear how our reappraisal is going to impact that. So on the city side of things, you're going to vote on 11 million whatever dollars for the city to collect. That's the amount of money we collect no matter what your assessment is. So if your value goes up, your share actually could go down, like the tax rate number could go down. But on average, you'll probably be paying $3,000 based on this budget. The education side is just less clear. And so I think it's important for voters to know, because of the funding formula, it's complicated. It's important for voters to know that none of us know exactly what the impact is of this budget and those changes is going to be. And so that is just something that we have to go into town meeting day knowing. And while it's quite likely all values in the city are going to rise.
Go up.
But if everybody's rising, on average, this would be an 8% increase on the city side. If your value goes up a little more than the average home or less than the average home, it could be 6 or 10. There's a little bit of fluctuation there.
So basically, and it's by also April 1st. That's when people will have an understanding of.
Is it June? Did
Actually,
I put this in
it's
wrong?
June,
It's June
yeah.
1st.
Okay.
I made a typo.
We have to finish by April 1. That's where that date came from. But people won't know until after they voted in March.
And also you're saying that basically it won't have any much effect in 2025 budget, right?
Is that right, Elaine?
It doesn't affect the city side, but the reappraisal will affect the school's taxes because that is set statewide.
Okay.
It's too complicated
It
for
is too
anyone
complicated.
to understand.
Yes, and the formula about education funding also, is really changing as well.
Yeah,
and I think
exactly.
many people are concerned, a lot of things on the air,
Yes.
but you guys are thinking in the future already.
Yes.
Which is why people say, Winooski, my town, you have the best town. Everybody know, you live in a town.
We agree. We agree.
We do believe that, yeah.
I also want to include this slide with tax rate, historic tax rates.
Yep.
You know, I mentioned earlier 8% is high. You can see here that is high for what we have historically had each year. But I also mentioned that we're trying to catch up on unfunded capital. And basically, the takeaway here is that our average annual increase has been less than inflation. So we haven't even been keeping up with increasing expenses. And that's why in the last couple of years, we've been saying like we actually need to catch up on capital. And I think that's part of why we get concerns from residents about like streets and sidewalks, because we haven't been able to maintain them.
Yep.
And then I don't want to dwell long here, but just a couple examples of like these are things we haven't been able to fund that we know are on the radar. There's a lot of deferred maintenance in our water lines. That's why we raised the water rate so we can start catching up there. A couple of safety equipment things we need to address. An even longer list. And I kind of just want to set the stage that we need to have a community conversation going forward about what is affordable, what should we be prioritizing, knowing that the outlook is we have a lot of things coming up that we need to address. So what are the decisions we need to make now to position us for that?
Amazing.
And then finally, I just have here our specific voting detail. If you're not familiar with the Winooski Senior Center, that's where we host our election every year, 123 Barlow Street. We've got the hours are the same everywhere, right? 7 to 7?
Yeah.
And then some contact information for our clerk's office if you're not registered to vote. You can go in person, you can call, you can register online if you're a U.S. citizen. For all resident voting, you need to go through our clerk's office.
Oh, you have to go, okay.
Yeah.
In person. Wonderful. And will the ballot also be at least translated and have it on the spot?
Yes, the ballot will be translated and there'll be interpreters at the polls.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's good. That's very good.
It's a start.
It is. I mean, I think you guys are very innovative. You're looking into the future, and also at the same time, you're trying to make things affordable for your residents, right? And also, you've been trying to be very inclusive by, first down with the resident non-voting. You passed it first, I believe. You one of the first.
Montpelier and Winooski did it at the same time.
At the same time, right? And I think, the future is in very good hands with people who are very capable and also people who deeply care about the newcomers, 22% who are foreign born, right? And
19.
19% who are foreign born. And, also you are thinking also about not only from the side of the municipality, but also from the school. How do you work together in making sure that the taxpayers are not burdened, right? I think this is just very amazing. We still have 2 more minutes. Are there any closing statements that you want to say, and also where people can find all of this information you shared here today?
I would just say, I want to reiterate that we are elected by voters, residents, we answer to them. We have a community dinner coming on February 19th at the community center. So there's an opportunity to learn more, ask questions. We'll be at the library actually tomorrow on Saturday from 12 to 2. And just anyone can reach out at any time to share their concerns, ask questions, give their ideas. We're so open to input and want to make sure that we're including everyone's thoughts as we make these decisions.
Excellent.
And then the website for the budget information is winooskivt.gov/FY25, as in fiscal year 25.
Okay. Wonderful. So thank you all for joining us and for listening here with us today. And thank you for tuning in Town Meeting Television, ongoing coverage of local candidates' budget. We just heard from the people of Winooski, the leaders of Winooski, about their ballot items and also what would be people voting on and who they will be also voting on Town Meeting Day. You can find forum and all the information about this the election season at cctv.org/2024 or on the Town Meeting channel, YouTube channel. And thank you again so much for joining us. Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Elaine. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
For everything that you do for the Winooski people. Winooski, my town. Everybody, have a lovely Town Meeting Day. Thank you.